August 8th meeting at 6:06 p.m. I'm filling in. Council Rep Steve Herman will fill in till Mr. Wohler gets here, or Mr. Miller, who are our officers. Please note that the Advisory Park Board of the City of Oshkosh has a scheduled meeting August 8th, 2016 at 6 o'clock, 404 Oshkosh City Hall, room 215 Church Avenue. Call to order, please.
Davis? Here. Dirth?
Here.
Bogoleski?
Here.
Herman?
Here.
Michelson?
Here.
Miller? Rule?
Here.
Schuessler? And Wooler.
Okay, we'll not do the election officers at this time. Approval of the June 13th minutes.
I just have one comment. On page 2, about 2/3 of the way down, second paragraph, I'm not sure the last part of that sentence, I don't know. I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean. Maybe just scratch it.
I can end it at where dogs can and cannot be.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Scratch the rest.
Yep, that'd be fine with me, because I'm not sure what that all meant there.
Okay. Any other changes to the minutes?
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, citizen statements. Citizen statements. The board has a 5-minute rule for all speakers addressing an item on the agenda and must not include endorsements of any candidate or other electioneering. If you require more time, please inform the chairman at the beginning of your presentation. This is items on the agenda. We're going to move item 2 up to item 1, which is discussion regarding Sawdust's use of the Menominee Park. So if anybody would like to speak on that, please go up to the microphone, state your name, your address, and you have 5 minutes to talk about Sawdust's use of Menominee Park.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Schmidt. I'm chairman of Sawdust Days. I live at 4303 Swallowbanks Lane in Oshkosh. I'm not sure what to say because I'm not sure why we are on the agenda. If we are on the agenda because of anything that happened at the park, no one has said anything to me. I have not been informed of anything at all. I am aware of what goes on in the park. I just wanted to state that the city is responsible for police coverage from 8 until 12 in the evening on the day of the fireworks, which is July 4th. We have security down there, and we have 10 security people that were down there and were there to assist the police when an incident happened, which did not happen on the Sawdust Days grounds. It happened in the Ball Diamond across from Webster Stanley School. I certainly would entertain any questions from anybody who has reason to wonder why Sawdust Days can use the park. Sawdust Days has invested, and I didn't bring the whole amount in my mind, but we have invested over $30,000 in infrastructure in the electrical system of Sawdust Days. We have donated a bench this year for $1,500 in the zoo area. We have worked quite well with the city people, and we've tried to abide by everything that they ask of us. If there's something we're not doing, no one has said anything to me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about that. I just feel like Sawdust Days has tried every year to accommodate every single request that has come our way, and we are doing our best to accommodate anything that may happen down there. I don't know if anybody knows of any way to predict what incident may or may not happen down there. We certainly are prepared to take care of it, but there's only a certain amount of preparedness that we can have. So if anybody has any questions of me, I would be happy to answer them.
Maybe if I could start, because I think Alan brings up a good point, because this is on the agenda at the request of some of the park board members. So
right.
I don't know if you want to discuss this first and then let some questions go, or how you want to handle it.
Well, the whole thing is, this isn't something that we're out after Sawdust Days or anything. One of the members wanted to discuss it, of what was going on down there or what happened down there. realistically, the parks, we can control who uses the parks or everything, but this is not our, how should I say? You know, when you go get your permits, just like when I go get my permits, we have like 12 people from the city that takes care of your permits and everything else, so we can't go against them. This was put on the agenda simply because someone from the board wanted to discuss it. It's not, I don't know, how should I say, it's not a witch hunt, it's not anything else. You realize what Sawdust Days does and everything else and the money you put in it, but we just wanted to discuss it, and I think it's good that you're here to at least hear what a few of the members have to say. Myself, I don't have a problem. I realize things can happen. This year, I think things did get a little out of control sometimes, but that's not, it's your problem, but it's not your problem. You don't understand what I mean?
I understand, yes.
Okay, it's your problem, but it's really not, it's something that you can't take care of, I don't think. As far as the permits and using the park and everything, that's out of our control. It has been for 5 years, 6 years, something like that. We all have to go get permits for things that I do. And we all sit there and there's 12 people sitting there telling us what we can and what we can't do. And that's what we have to abide by. So just so we realize that someone might have some questions for you from the board and we want to discuss it. That's what it's all about.
That's perfectly fine.
And I think as far as anybody that wants to discuss it is fine.
Can you clarify a little bit? I mean, I feel I'm a little embarrassed. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand what we're talking about. I mean, just, we need to discuss Sawdust Days, but I guess I'm not aware of any incident or.
No, it was brought up, Bill brought it up that he wanted to discuss Sawdust Days, what went on this year, and he was concerned about it.
So just in general?
Just in general. It isn't anything that we aren't here sitting, no, you can't use the park. That isn't it. It's a city thing. It's a special events. We have somebody from every department of the city sits around this table. We all sit over there, and then we go sit at the end, and they grill us, tell us what we can do and what we can't do. This isn't our job to tell her what she's going to do. Everybody else in the city has told her what to do already. Bill wanted to discuss this, and that's why it's on the agenda. It's really nothing, I mean, we aren't going to come up with a plan on how she can make it better or anything else. She's been doing this forever. I'm certainly not going to tell her what to do.
I think to clarify for Carrie a little bit, and as a council rep, did we have any damage in the park? Was there any damage to any of the shelters? Was there any damage to the grass areas? Was there any damage to boat landings? I think, park features. Was there any issues connected? I think that's our role as a Parks Board to know after a large event, especially an event that's 4 or 5 days long. I mean, it could be the same thing if we have a big, when they had a big car show at Salt Park, if someone was there and saw something they didn't like, or there was a problem, or something they brought forward. So I think anytime you have a big event, it's not bad that the boards that are overseeing those facilities get a little update of how the event went. Were there any issues? Were there issues on our end as a city? Were there issues to our equipment? And just general kind of a review. That's really why it got put. Bill wanted to know was how was the park used, and were there issues with our park facilities?
Right, and I can't get all the information because the police reports haven't been given out, which Ray says is not our concern anyway. But if we are getting into a situation where we're getting a lot of gang activity and a lot of drugs coming into that event, then I think it's time for you to look at what's going on. Next thing you do, we're going to have a shooting. We're going to have a police officer shoot somebody, and then it's really going to escalate. I believe that the Sawdust Days has gotten really out of hand. I really do. I think all you're doing right now is attracting gangs and drugs into that park for that 5 days. There's people here in the city of Oshkosh that won't go down there because of that. I'm being one of them.
There have been people for years that didn't want to come down because it is too big, and I agree. Myself, if I didn't have a privileged way to be down there, I probably wouldn't park near Main Street and walk all the way down. I have been told offhand that it was not gangs, there were no drugs involved, and it was not alcohol. It was two girls fighting, and one girl pushed the other one down, and it started the whole ruckus. I don't believe that you can say or even imply that there are gangs or drugs if there is no evidence of that. And that's the way that I've been told by the police. So I know I haven't got the police report, but if there's anything that changes from that, I would be glad to address it. And I don't know if you can address gangs in Oshkosh or Menominee Park or anywhere else from the park board or from Sawdust Days, because we try our best to have a good family event. We try our best to have children's activities, parent activities. They can come in free. It's a wonderful event for people who can't afford to buy a ticket to have admission somewhere. We're all volunteers. We work free so that we can have the Sawdust Days free festival for everyone. I've been told by vendors and other people that come to Menominee Park that they love Oshkosh, they love Menominee Park. They don't have a negative issue about it. They stay in hotels, they pay at restaurants, they buy supplies. It's all kinds of things like that. The, from the city, this is Event City, and what I'm trying to say is that they have said that we bring in about $13 million with all the hotels, the supplies, and all the things that we use in the city of Oshkosh. So if there's drugs or gangs, they're already in Oshkosh. I don't know how we can prevent them from coming to Menominee Park. They already probably come to Menominee Park when you're not there and when we're not there. So that's kind of a big issue for us to address or even answer. And I think you're making an implication that you have no real knowledge about.
I'm going to disagree with you on that because I talked to several police officers, and they wish the Sawdust Days would not happen in Oshkosh.
Gee, thanks.
You know, they
Thank you very much.
wish the people out at Sawdust Days were like the people at Life Fest. They buy them water, they thank them for being there, and everything else.
Yes.
Yeah, I would talk to some police officers that worked Sawdust Days and see what they say. I didn't know anything about the thing on the baseball diamond until you brought it up.
Well, that's
This
the
was
only thing I was,
other time at Ames Point.
at Ames Point? What do we have to do with Ames Point?
That's part of the park, and you got a big part of it. If you're drawing, and
If I can help out, I believe the major incident that took place was in the Midway area, is what I was told from the police chief. And again, I guess not having the chief here or not dealing with the police side of things, I guess if we could focus on the park items, and I can give you some of the information, I think, Bill, that you were looking for as far as some of the cleanup and some of those items if you'd like.
Yes.
But as far as talking about whether something happened on the ball field or Ames Point, I know it took place in the Midway area according to what
Okay.
I've heard and seen. So
Okay.
until we get further information that I can share from our police department, I would prefer to focus on the parks.
Where is Ames Point?
It's
On the
essentially
north
the
end?
peninsula that goes out off the north end, out into
Okay.
Miller's Bay. That's
I didn't know we were responsible for Ames Point.
That's outside of your special
That's
event area,
outside of your
actually.
area.
Yeah, that's what I
but
thought.
it's still, Sawdust Days draws gangs to this town.
I think perhaps that's a personal opinion. I think they're already here. I don't think that just because we're a special event means that we have more. And I'm just astounded that you would think that we draw that particular group of people.
Wish I could prove it to you, but I've got a strong feeling that we do draw more gangs on that 5 days than any other time of the year.
Okay, I've never been told that by the police. I've asked them pointedly. And Matt Harris is our liaison officer, and he has always said it's not gang related. So I can only go by what he tells me. Now, if police officers are telling you something different, I certainly would like to have that in a report, because I've read the reports for several years now, and it's never been in any report, and I have them all printed out. It's never been in any report that I have received.
Want me to go through some items for you?
Yeah.
As far as the parks are related, I can give you information that we have submitted to Kathy Snell, who's our special events coordinator, who works directly with all special events. Just to explain the process a little bit, I won't get into the whole detail, but as Terry had mentioned, all events go through Kathy Snell. There have been in the past special event review committee. That committee has been panned down as far as the number of people attending, because Kathy tries to deal with the items in person with the individual running the organization. Kathy will do the reaching out to individual departments, so we don't have as much time spent in a meeting. So, talking with Kathy and getting information from Chad for just the parks, when I talked to our staff, this is not out of ordinary. I think as far as our charges go, I think you saw the invoice come through last week, Ellen. Our invoice, total invoice from Park Services was just over $3,500 for Sawdust Days this year. I think it's up slightly from last year, but not significantly. Just to give you an idea, couple days leading up to the event, our staff spent about 17 hours helping to haul benches, tables, picnic tables, trash cans, helping to get electrical panels out in the park and so forth. And then we help, throughout the event, we'll have our staff coming in, cleaning restrooms and restocking some of the paper supplies and so forth. But they do have volunteers that are supposed to be taking care of trash, emptying the trash barrels and taking it to dumpsters.
We pay to have the trash, but you're talking about expenses that we pay for, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
these are all things that you were charged for.
Right, right.
And then following the event, about roughly 2 days worth, we spent about 15 hours, just general park cleanup, picnic tables returning, benches, trash cans, and then the electrical panels removed and returned to storage. All in total, just over $2,800 in staffing costs were charged for the parks. We do charge them for the supply use, such as trash can liners, toilet tissue, paper towels. That supply total was just under $740, and that's where you come up with $3,570 for park items. As far as the cleanup goes, I did talk directly with one of our maintenance staff today, just to get his input, as he oversees Menominee Park and sends out our seasonal staff on the cleanup. Said it was nothing out of the ordinary. He did note that the first 2 days after the event, the park was, a lot of trash was left there. We did make contact with Ellen and the group, and they got out there, and he said actually after those 2 days, it was cleaned up very nicely, but it was those first 2 days afterwards. I was down there a number of the days. I did notice, and I'm not sure if you were short volunteers, but a number of times the trash barrels and bags were overflowing, and but that was just something I noticed down there, and I know, like I said, you rely on some paid staff and some volunteers.
Really difficult to keep up with it, and we had a change because 2 members that were doing the park stuff resigned, and we had someone take over, and we had some people that didn't show up to help clean up, and that will not happen again, because we're going to hire straight out and not go through all this rigmarole with people who say they're going to show up and then they don't.
A couple of other items that we had to follow up with Ellen and her individuals with, and this has been an ongoing problem for years, is the cooking oil containers. There were a number of barrels, 55-gallon drums with, I believe, cooking oil that were left there for, I think, about 2 weeks following the event, along with some pallets that we had to continually try to get those picked up. There were some leaking midway rides. The oil was leaked onto the parking lot, not nearly as bad as last year, I think it was, but there was still some leaking. And then the 2 days following the event, our streets and sewer division had to go down to Menominee Park. They had to suck out some of the storm sewers because there was indication that some of the cooking oil was dumped down the sewer grates again. So they had to come down with the vac truck, suck out the best that they could and clean those out. And then we also did discover that the sanitary line going from the Kiwanis shelter towards the new restroom facility was plugged. Their feeling is, by what they saw coming out of it, again, it was cooking oil that potentially was being dumped down the sinks in the Kiwanis shelter. So we did pass that cost along to Sawdust Days, and I'd have to look through the total invoice. And Bill, to your point, the invoice for Sawdust Days, I just went out last week, actually, because everything's still been compiled, so I don't have the detail here. It's just a line item for each. Let me just see if it's on here real quickly. Barricade sweeper for cleanup. Vac trucks for cleanup, looks like $600 that was charged, and then another $360 in labor. My guess is a lot of that would be contributed to that cleaning up of whatever substance was dumped down the storm sewers. Just give you an idea, Sawdust Days, total invoice for the city services this year, $23,624. And that is everything from fire inspection fees, park services, park supplies, police costs, include some sales tax, the barricades, street sweeper for going through the park, and then the vac trucks, as we discussed.
Do we require them to reserve the boat launch like we do the fishing?
We haven't up until this point, but if you recall, this board earlier this spring talked about instituting fees, and those will be going to the Common Council. What we plan to do is bring those forward as part of the budget process, which we're submitting right now, so I would expect that in August, September, we will be doing so. And that was included as part of any event utilizing the park facility.
I wasn't just singling them out. I was
Correct.
thinking, because I know Otter Street, for example, I know they pay for the launch. And there's a couple other fishing tournaments. Same thing with the shelters and the ball diamonds, right?
Yes.
We're doing all that now.
So that will be starting in 2017 if the council approves that.
And all those prices went up,
Right.
Yeah.
doubled or whatever.
Interestingly enough, the total income that the city would receive from that is $9,400. Sawdust Days portion would be $6,840, and the other events would be $2,560. And so I don't think it'll be a big impact on the other events. And I do want to say that we posted at every single drain a sign in 2 languages saying, "Do not dump here." If I could find out, and I talked to Kathy Snell today, which drains that were compromised, I might be able to figure out which vendors are violating our rules, because we provided, you have it, okay.
I have that for you. I think
Okay, thank
she
you.
was going to email it to you, but she did copy me as well, so
Okay.
you should have it.
Because we do provide waste containers, and the oil situation, I called that company 3-4 months ahead of time, and it was supposed to be picked up the day after Sawdust Days, and I called them again and again and again, and it was a very difficult issue to get it resolved, and it was supposed to have been picked up July 5th, so I apologize that they didn't comply with what we had requested. So, I mean, I'm doing everything I can. If a company doesn't respond and doesn't do what they're supposed to do and what they promised to do, it's very difficult to resolve that.
So hopefully that answers some of the questions that the board had. As far as damage to the property, checking with our staff, there was no reported damage that we're aware of, nothing with the shelters, buildings. It's going to be typical turf, from having a lot of people on the turf, which during the summer, the grass is probably mainly dormant, and this year was pretty dry anyway, so we're not thinking that it won't come back. So as far as any damage permanently, we do not have anything that we would be asking for restitution for.
Just curious on roughly how many people you think attended this year's event?
It's always hard to tell
Yeah, I
because
know.
we don't have any admission
Right.
thing. We think between 40 and 50, and most of them come on the 4th of July.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Ellen, like I said, I appreciate the job that you and your committee are doing, and I think you do an excellent job.
Thank you.
I live by the park. I go through Sawdust Days numerous times during the event, and and I know we've talked about it's getting bigger, and that's always kind of hard to control that the event, the size of it. But I think you guys are doing a great job. I only have one little gripe and this year it was better, but one of my little gripes, seeing as we're talking about it, it's on the agenda, is sometimes I think the carnival or the vendors, the setup, the vehicles are in the park, I would consider too early, in some years. I think this year was better, but some years it seems like they're in there taking over the park a little on the early side, in my opinion.
It's difficult this year because of the way the 4th fell.
Yep.
So we always have a little issue with them coming from one place to another. We try to control it, but it's very difficult.
I know.
I'm sorry about that, yes. But anyway, we do the best we can, and you say that it's getting bigger. It's really not. The Midway hasn't gotten any bigger. We don't have any more vendors. We haven't spread out in any way. The history area is not any bigger. We really aren't getting bigger.
Right. Well, what I was saying was controlling, the size, is what I was
Yeah, we've been controlling the size, and we have not expanded the Midway. We've not expanded anything at all.
That's good.
So we're not trying to get bigger. We're happy the way it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I did remember one item, and Ellen is very well aware of this, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, but we did have to deal with an issue with having some exotic animals that we had found out about that weren't part of their special event application approval. They had planned to have some monkeys and white tigers, I think.
White tigers.
White tigers, I'm sorry. So we had to, Kathy Snell and myself and the police had to get involved and enforce what was approved through the council, through their special event, and the exotics were not allowed in the park, and we actually had to have the white tigers removed the day of the event.
The issue with the white tigers, partly my fault, because they have been coming down there for years, and I just thought of them as another vendor. I didn't know till 2.5 weeks before the event that they were coming, and Kathy was already dealing with the monkeys with the petting zoo. That was already banned, and the only thing I know from the petting zoo was she said no llama. And the white tiger thing, because the lady was already set up, I think she was pretty upset about it all. And Kathy did not come and talk to me about it until she went and got the police and all. And I wish she would have come and talked to me instead of getting the police and then coming and talking to me, because I think it could have been resolved a little more easy, and we wouldn't have had the issue. I was not aware that exotic animals were not allowed in the park. Like I say, they've been there for probably 18 years, so...
I guess I can understand that too, but you didn't know about it till 2.5 weeks before, so that
Right.
concerns me a little bit about who knew what was happening at the event, and that's why we had to step in and say this can't take place.
Well, the thing is that if it's exotic animals, or, there has to be some criteria for us to know what's allowed and what's not allowed, and no one had ever said to me exotic animals, and as I say, it's partly my fault because I just thought of them as another vendor that had been there for so many years. So it wasn't a new vendor, it was just someone that had come back, and she came down there and saw it, and they were already set up, and it created an issue.
I guess I'd just like to let the Parks Board know that Common Council members have asked staff to compile a post report from this year's Sawdust Days, which will include everything from the park side. Kathy is working with us on that, police, fire, and all departments involved. The council has asked for staff to report to the Common Council. My guess is that's going to take place either later in later in August or into September potentially, and I believe that's what's been conveyed to the Common Council. So we can definitely make the minutes of this meeting part of that report as well, and when our full report is ready, we can share that with the board as well.
Okay, anybody? Nope. Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks for all your work, too. I mean...
Thank you.
Okay. Skipped, okay, now our update on Menominee Park Shoreline Restoration Project.
Okay, I'll take that. Unfortunately, Michelle was unable to join us today, but she did send along a copy of their schedule, and this has been an ongoing document that they've been sharing with our department on just letting us know what activities they're doing and what the specific tasks are that they have scheduled. So you'll you'll see this in the future as we go. They had a couple days where they had a little difficulty with weather early on. They tried to get a big trim day done on July 18th, but then it started to warm up kind of quick, and then they had, some of the plants were already blooming, so they did not trim everything that they wanted to trim down to that 1 foot height that they had hoped. On that day, they did cut back some of the cup plants and other taller species to the ground on July 18th and July 26th. So those plants were the ones that were always getting real tall, so they've been working on removing those entirely from the site. Their plans next are to, in October, they're going to partner with some local nonprofits and dig out about 600 and 900 square feet of plants in that viewing area that we discussed last year. Some of the folks from Land and Water Conservation have suggested maybe to try to help some of the visibility to create a vision corridor within the planting area. So that's the intention on that October date, to remove a section of it. We had a tree blow down that was in that vicinity, so we cut the tree out. They're going to kind of open that area up and remove a lot of the plants from that area, and then chip it in with wood chips in that vicinity. They wanted to keep some of the other unwanted taller species out of that zone as well. Additionally, she said that she wanted to schedule 1 or 2 more digs each year to try to move forward in removing some of the taller and more aggressive plant species. They're going to start working on the west of the new viewing area, and then move from that opening to the west. And then they want to also experiment with overall trimming of the eastern part of the site at different intervals, see how they can affect the plant height over the summer. The issue this year is they were getting ready to do the trim. We had provided them with some equipment, and then everything just started to go to flower, and so they didn't really want to, take all the flowering portion of the plants off at that time. So it was just kind of a situation where everything started really moving quick in the growing season, and they weren't able to get that done in that window of time that they had hoped. So they're going to try to approach that a little earlier next year, from what she indicates here in this document. Then she's also mentioned that she had heard a lot of positive comments about the plants at the site while working out there this year. They did receive a few complaints from people while they were trimming, as they liked the height of the blooms and the blooms of the plants, and they didn't want to see them cut down. So they did kind of work sections of it where that wasn't going to be an issue, and try to bring it down in some areas and let some of the other stuff continue to bloom. She's also working forward into next year's schedule. We had initially, I think in last October 12th minutes, we had indicated that the Parks Board had given them another 3-year extension starting October 13th, 2014. So they are on track to, continue to work on removing some of those taller plants in the existing project area. They've already moved many of them down to that Melvin Avenue pump station project area. That seems to be working out pretty well. So that's basically the update that I received from the group thus far. So I think they've done a pretty good job keeping a lot of the weeds under control, and we've been out there several times just to pick up the cuttings and the debris that they have after their work days. So there has been some significant cleanup work activities happening out there.
Okay.
If there's any other questions that I can maybe help or convey to the group, I'd be happy to do that.
What are you looking at me for?
Figured you had a comment.
Nope, I don't have a comment.
What I think is interesting about this project is, I think it's extreme, I mean, just kind of looking at the bigger view of the whole project, I think it's extremely hard. You know, I live real close, and I'll go down there and I see, you know, a few people, you know, one or two people working usually, and I'm not there all the time, but I know on, I think it was Sustainability Board or something, they were asking for volunteers, and it's hard to get people, you know, to get enough people to do all that's in this project, and I just think I think it's really a lot to ask, you know, in a project of this magnitude for volunteers on such a project that's such high maintenance. I mean, until they can get those tall plants out of there, I mean, it's just a high maintenance job, you know, and the way it's set up. I mean, it's hard to do because, I don't know. I guess what I would like to do is I'd like to review measurables. And the only measurable I have, you know, of substance was the draft that we got last fall. And, you know, and we never got anything else after that, so I'm assuming that this was the latest and greatest. You know, I mean, I see this now, we just got this the other day, but a lot of those aren't very measurable. They're kind of iffy, you know, there's really not a lot of, you know, a lot of those things don't have a lot of concrete stuff in them. Some are, but a lot of them aren't. And, you know, we talked about our 3-foot limits, and, you know, I don't know, lately I've been going down there, and I don't know, the average plants are probably between 3.5 and 4.5 feet. Some are 5, some are 3, but we're way over, in general, way over the 3 feet that we had agreed on. I thought that's what we had agreed on last fall, and when we talked about all this. We had our meeting down there, we had a meeting here, and I don't know, I'd like to go down this draft plan and just see, you know, how we did, you know.
If I can just add that draft plan, I believe, was there a date on that one, Bill? Because that was, I'm sorry, Bill, Jim.
I don't know, there's no date on it.
I believe that's the one that you were working on with Justin.
That was
last fall, I believe. And
Yeah.
what took place was Justin stepped back from the group, and that's when Michelle came forward.
It was after Justin, it was.
I think Justin was on board until November, December, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because it was a
He just said he
transition at
wasn't-
the end of the year.
yeah, just that
he
he
was
kinda
stepping
handed
back.
over, yeah, okay.
Right. So that's why Bill started working closer with Michelle, based on her experience and getting her involved a little bit more. So I think we can look at some of those things, but I don't want them to say this is what was approved, because that's why I know it's a
Okay,
draft.
and that's
But if there are
fine.
certain things you want to add for the group into their current work document, saying, you know, instead of trimming certain things, or as Bill said, I think they're going to look at next spring, doing it sooner, cutting things down. I know we had talked about maybe having them do it once in the spring early on, and then again later fall, so that there's just that growing season. So I agree, Bill, or Jim, if you want to add some things, or go back to the committee and say, but let's work on this document, I think, if we can. But if you want to pull certain things,
Well,
that you wanted
the
to-
problem I have with this document, this is great for, you know, people, trying to get people there, but I don't think this document is a very good document that actually shows measurables. Something in more of this format that actually shows, you know, actual things. You know, we're going to remove 200 plants, or we're going to do this, we're going to have a trimming, you know, this kind of thing. Those to me are something we can measure. You know, right, you know, a lot of this is kind of iffy, in my opinion. It's you know, it's hard to, you know, it's like another year goes by and, you know, okay, so now what? You know?
I will say that they do report to me after their work days about the level of volunteers that they've had and the actual work that they have done. We haven't really shared it with the board, but I do get, you know, whenever they do a work day, they do communicate with me about it. So, you know, they typically have quite a few volunteers on their work days, and I don't know if you've experienced any of those days, but I know there's a core group that is there a lot, and then there's also larger groups, like when they did the transplanting of the plants to the pump house area, they had, you know, a bunch of Girl Scouts and various different groups, and as I mentioned, I think they do have some groups scheduled to work with them, some nonprofits that are assist them too. So they do get kind of a, you know, a variety of groups involved in it. I think sometimes it's really hard to notice the results though, just because it is such a dense area.
Well, the results are that we have plants that average 3.5 to 4.5, 5 feet high. It's supposed to be 3 feet. So, but I mean, kind of getting into it, I mean, until they can get rid of those taller plants, I mean, this is just gonna be a huge maintenance job. It really is. I mean, it's gonna be a lot of work until those larger plants can be removed, because you cut them down, they're gonna grow right back up, just like, and like when we saw at South Park, for example, that plan, we had, plants that were a foot or 2 feet high, and then it was really nice. They did a nice job, the consulting company, and the blossoms may bring it up another foot, from 2 feet to 3 feet, that kind of thing. I thought that was good to see that kind of information. But until, I'm gonna say probably the majority of those plants are just way too tall plants. Until they're replaced, it's going to be a maintenance nightmare, I think, to try to have any kind of shot at trying to control, how high that the bed of flowers are.
If I could make a suggestion, I noticed you're on that email that Michelle sent out. She sends it to council too to keep it. Wondering if maybe either make a copy of that email and get it out to the Parks Board members, or add their email address to her email. Because basically what Bill read was her report to about 45 people that are on this email chain. And, they've worked with the Audubon Society, it said in here. They've, you're talking about kind of measurables. I think they got some in this email that she sent us, some measurables. She's asking for ideas, thoughts, and experiences with the site. She's also talking about, as Bill mentioned, some stuff about the viewing area, maintaining a 10-foot wide area of wood chips. So I think if maybe we could, to keep all the board members in the loop, maybe either make a copy of that email and put it in their packet, or if it makes sense to have them add it to their email list, then you'll get she sends it out almost monthly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, then you'll get a monthly update of what they're doing down there, and if there's a day that anybody's free. I went there the first couple times. I haven't gone recently, other than I was there for National Night Out last week, and actually I didn't have anybody. I had one person come up and kind of complain about it, but other than that, I think they've tried hard, a lot harder than in the past, and I think Michelle's done a good job of taking over this group. And but it is hard to get volunteers, and it's always Saturday mornings, and we all know how hard that is. And that, so,
and like I said, it's tough getting enough volunteers, and because of the plants that are in there, it's really a lot of maintenance. And until those plants are removed, it's gonna be a big job.
Within the month after the county had their big burn at the county park, almost all that's grown back, that they burned off. I mean, it just grows back so fast, that type of.
I mean, those plants inherently want to be way over 3 feet, many of them.
Right.
And so to get to that goal of 3 feet or less, the plants are going to have to be removed and replaced with ones that are smaller.
Yeah, and that's the intention. They're just trying to do it in phases, and they've been removing the really tall stuff, and now they're kind of getting into the other stuff, and they're actually moving them completely off-site, so.
Well, like Bill said,
recognize
it's hard when some people don't want certain plants removed because of the beauty of the plant and everything else, and it's blooming at that time. It's hard to dig them out. But.
Bill?
Bill, did they have their work detail that they said on the 6th? Said that they were, August 6th, they were gonna remove weeds and woody growth, clean up litter, trim plants, as needed?
Yes.
They did have that?
Yeah.
Okay. I have not been down there since then. Has anybody been down there since that cleanup?
I was by there this weekend.
6th was
It was Saturday.
I
didn't get a look at it.
was by there Sunday. I went by yesterday.
And?
I mean, I saw a few people working when I was going by. I don't know, it was either, it was probably there Saturday and Sunday, probably both. But I saw a few people working. They were doing a little cleanup on the west side. There was a few people, volunteers working there. But I mean, but still, just the general
still 3.5 to 5
The general
feet tall.
bed is still 3.5 to 4.5. Some are 5, some are 3. But I mean, I'd say the average height is 3.5 to 4.5 feet, probably. I mean, there's some 3-footers, but it's got a long ways to go to try to get to that 3 feet unless more plants are removed, because they want to be too tall. Unfortunately, they want to grow too much the seed that was planted, as we talked about, was the wrong seed. It was the wrong seed.
It was wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's kind of the whole thing. I mean, Bill and Jim can correct me, because they were here when this was all started. But, like Jim says, it's hard to get volunteers for this. And I think when they started this, it was 3 or 4 people that said, let's throw some wild plants in there, and we can just put them in there, and that's all that's gonna happen. It's just gonna be wild, and it's gonna be beautiful and everything else, and it's gonna be this tall. Well, when they started out, they put the wrong stuff in there.
Yeah, it's the wrong
Right?
seed.
We all know that. And the stuff is still there, and like Jim said, until they get the big stuff out of there, it's not gonna be that low, okay? But the thing is, I think they're trying now anyway.
Yeah.
This girl that took over is trying now to get it out of there, and I think if they work at it, they can probably get it out. But let's face it, it was a big mistake to begin with. I think it was a big mistake to begin with.
It started with the seed,
Right, the seed started, and everybody thought they were just gonna plant this, and that was gonna be it. Not, we're gonna have to get a whole bunch of volunteers to maintain this.
I thought it was just going to be a natural,
They just thought it was gonna be a natural thing, and everybody's gonna love it.
yeah.
Everybody don't love it.
Well, and like, for example, I hope when we go forward with the South Park plan, if the seeds are planted according to the plan that was presented, there won't be all that maintenance, because, the seeds are gonna be controlled to a limited number of seeds, and, they're gonna be, whatever size they are, but they were, 1 foot with blossoms to 2, or 2 feet with blossoms to 3, that kind of thing, and it's gonna be controlled. But, yeah, here we've just got this, just big maintenance job.
I don't want everybody to think that South Park's not going to have invasives, because there's going to be water flowing, there's going to be seeds coming in,
Yeah.
there's probably going to be cattails we'll have to deal with. The other plants that we're seeing at other water detention basins or dry and wet ponds, it's still maintenance. So that's why we're careful what we put out there, and probably why the city has mowed it up to the water level that
Yeah.
they have, because once you put these in, it's not just no mow and just simply leave it. So I don't want everybody to think we're not going to have this issue at South Park, because we're still going to have maintenance down there to keep these other types of plants out of there. So
There are a number of plants that are probably around the 3 to 3.5 foot range. There's probably quite a few of them in there. It's just lots and lots of other ones that aren't,
Well, I think what we can do is talk to Michelle, and if nothing else, we can forward on the email that Bill was
Yep.
talking about to everybody here.
Yeah.
And also, when they have their work days, or on a monthly basis, if you guys are getting copies, sometimes I don't even get those, so Bill shares them with me. So maybe if Michelle doesn't have a problem, she can include everybody, and at least you're kept in the loop a little bit more, too.
Well, like I said, I think she's trying to really do something positive, and I think that's really good,
Okay.
And we gotta learn from our mistakes.
Hard part. Just so you know, Terry, we skipped over the election of officers. That has to come back. We didn't do it.
We waited for you, because
We waited
we thought you were
on
running late on
agenda.
purpose.
It's on the agenda, so,
Is it really?
yeah.
Yep.
We skipped it.
You get another term for being late. Did you talk
How it is there?
Did you talk to Mr. Miller?
He'll take anything I tell him.
There we go.
He
There we
said
go.
he would run if so asked.
What?
He said he would run for vice chair if he was asked.
Okay.
Or nominated.
So I don't have anything else.
You going to
Okay.
take over, Ray?
I'll take over. If you guys are done with the
Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're done.
I will open the floor for nominations for chairperson.
I nominate Terry Wooler.
Any other nominations for chair?
We need a second on that?
Third time? If there's none third, then we can cast unanimous ballot if you'd like. Bill, would you like to do that? Unanimous ballot for Terry?
Yes.
All those approve? Say aye.
Aye.
Nominations for vice chair.
Bill Miller.
Nominations for vice chair. last time, nominations for vice chair. Okay, make a
Unanimous
unanimous.
vote?
Yep. For Mr. Miller. Wow, that took a long time.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Oh, aye, yeah, all in favor, say aye. Okay, park director's report.
Yep, I'll keep it pretty brief. September meeting, what we plan to do is bring any fee revisions we're looking for next year. I know a couple of them that we've discussed internally. If you recall, last year we talked about a non-resident fee at the pool. Jenny's doing research into that, so we most likely will be coming forward with a proposal for a non-resident fee at the pool. I briefly talked to Trace last week at the course. He had some that he thought that he might need to look at adjusting. I can't think of any others offhand at this point, so we will. Oh, the other one that we are looking into is, if I can pull the information together, we have not had in the past charges or fees for use of ball diamonds. And we have been letting most of the user groups know over the last year to say we cannot further have our staff going out maintaining ball fields, prepping ball fields, and not having a reservation process in place. It becomes a real scheduling nightmare for Chad when we get requests from groups saying we need XYZ field from 8 in the morning until 8 at night, and we find out that they only use it a couple hours out of that day because we book it for them. They can book it that way because they're not charged anything. It's very unusual from places I've worked with, as well as Chad, to not have at least a rental fee, a per-hour rental fee. So if Joe Smith, as a citizen, wants to come in and rent it for his family for 2 hours in an afternoon for a pickup game of baseball, whether it's $10 an hour, or if we want to prep it, we add on the staffing cost. If there's lights, there's other fees that we add. So we're looking at coming up with a fee schedule for such types of fees, because we prep, I believe, 9 fields a day during the summer, and we are not reimbursed by the groups for that. There will be some balancing we'll need to look at because a number of those groups do support us with donations, some sizable donations. So we are working on and figuring out how we can do that. And this isn't just new here to Oshkosh. We've talked with other of our park and rec professionals throughout the valley, and a lot of those are experiencing the same issues that we are. So we're kind of working on getting some of their information, but also working through some of those larger groups that give potential large donations. How can we work to not lose that revenue source? So we're hoping we'll have that in place as well.
What, just a question on that, if we're charging the baseball diamonds and everything, what if somebody wants to rent the tennis courts?
Same thing with tennis courts.
You got that on there?
Yes.
Okay.
Pretty much a facility use.
Okay.
Correct.
You're not looking at a boat launch increase, right?
We
Nina
are.
and Menasha raised their fees.
I saw that. We are not at this point looking at one, no.
I think they added, and the money goes to the fire protection or their
Correct.
dive rescue.
Their dive
type
rescue team.
Stuff.
Yes.
On their dive rescue team.
They
Their
are
boat
looking,
launch-
they are looking at an increase in if you buy it out.
Yeah.
We or who? Yeah, that was part of this board's
Right.
discussion earlier
Right.
this year.
No, that I know. I meant day pass.
You mean the daily pay?
Yeah,
Okay.
Nina Menasha raised their, and the dollar increase was going to help fund their dive rescue team for the fire department.
Right, but theirs isn't set up like ours is, an enterprise fund. Theirs
don't-
probably goes into a general fund.
I have no idea how theirs
Yeah.
works.
Ours goes in, yeah. Well, we could, I mean, if you get down to dive and rescue, we could almost finagle the money in there too, if you had to. It's the same thing.
Yeah, all we do is vote
I'd
on it.
rather hold off on that discussion because there is
Right.
state statute that says if you're collecting a boat launch fee, certain things, it must
Yeah,
go
you
towards
can and
certain
can't
things.
do
So I'm not going to say what other are doing, if it's right or wrong, but I know what we're doing. It goes strictly into the boat launch fee and it's for maintenance and servicing,
Right.
so. But at this point, to your question, I
Yeah,
don't believe we're looking at.
that's all I asked. I had a citizen ask because
Yep.
they saw that Nina Menasha had raised their rates. And I was wondering if we were looking at increasing our rates. I don't know.
I think we just, we approved it in 2014. I think 2015 was when it took effect. So we're only in our
Right.
second year of the.
Second year.
Yeah.
So, just a reminder, the Tuesday night concerts, we have 2 weeks left. Tomorrow night is Tin Sandwich, which is a local group and has a good local following, so 6:30 till 9:30, stop down. And then the 16th is the last Tuesday night. The band is Outside Aces, and I have heard again, just locally, they've got a good following and that they're a good local band. So encourage you to stop down and attend those. The Senior Center parking lot, William Steiger boat launch lot is just about completed. They had some final restoration work and some concrete work to do. They had a meeting today. I didn't get to that one as far as an update, but I would expect that facility should be open here within the next couple of weeks. Jim, you'll be happy to hear this one too, but the park path down there was completed as part of that project on the
I've been on it a
tech
number of
side.
times.
And they started removal
on the
on
tech side, okay.
on Carl Steiger side by the university. That path section has been removed, and they'll probably pave that this week as
It
well.
must have been in the last,
Today,
today,
actually.
yeah,
Yep.
I went through there.
But if you recall, that was part of our agreement a couple years ago that we worked out with the UW Oshkosh Foundation as part of removing the parking lot there, that they are responsible for that cost. So both those park paths will be redone, which is a nice improvement for that whole area in the Wheel Wash Trail and the Riverwalk system. Speaking of that, unfortunately, we had some pretty bad vandalism over the weekend down at the Boatworks new restroom facility. So I'm asking the neighbors out there, the police are looking for help. They're apparently used some of the large riprap stones and were throwing those against the building, smashed a lot of the composite siding, broke a portion of the concrete rail that runs around the building.
When was this?
Over the weekend, we became aware
I
of
was
it.
there yesterday, and I didn't see any damage that I noticed.
We just, our staff, I
Yesterday
believe, found it
afternoon
this
I was
morning
there.
and filed a police report, so it
I
must have
didn't-
took place.
I didn't notice anything yesterday afternoon when I was there, but I don't know when it happened.
So we're getting a contractor in with an estimate to replace the siding on some of the areas that were damaged, and then the concrete work as well. We will be looking at installing cameras down there because this is probably the second major incident. We had some graffiti late last summer, and we have the building set up already for cameras, and unfortunately, I think we need to do it because there's not enough homes backing up to it like a lot of our other parks where we have a lot of nice eyes on it. So,
Beautiful park, it really is. They
Yeah.
did a nice job on that park.
that's all I have for now. Oh, I'm sorry. There is going to be some work going on in the council chambers and in this room later this month and in September. So we were advised by Oshkosh Media that this room will not be set up. It'll be set up for us to use, but our meeting will not be televised.
Oh,
So
no.
just letting the citizens out there know if you're looking for us next
Might
month.
go to 4-hour meetings again
yeah,
or something.
back
You
to
never know.
4-hour meetings now.
So. But we will still continue to meet here. It just won't be set up for televising. Thanks, Trish.
Okay, landscape. Bill, you got any more?
Yeah, I got a little bit.
Right.
One of the big things I think a lot of people have noticed is the new welcome signs were installed. Got those in right up to the minute before EAA started, and then my crews worked with the electrical division and the engineering division and got everything kind of installed there. And then we finished up and landscaped everything the following week. So we had the big grand opening, was it last week?
Tuesday.
Tuesday?
Last Tuesday.
So that went over quite well. So got 4 new Welcome to Oshkosh features here. That was all funded through the Taking Root Fund, which is at the Community Foundation. So we're trying to spread the word to clarify that it wasn't, tax dollars that went into those, but rather, private funds. So I think it's a nice addition to the gateways into the community. So we've been working on a bunch of landscaping projects at various locations throughout the city. We've redone the safety building signs, done some work here at City Hall, Rowe Park. Earlier in the spring, we had redone the landscaping at the Otter exhibit as they built the new sidewalks around that property. Boatworks, as we mentioned, we did a little landscaping down there as part of the grand opening project there as well. The crews have been pretty busy on roundabout maintenance and working on the traffic islands. It's been a pretty good year for growing weeds, so we've been really struggling to keep up with a lot of that. Last Friday, I announced to the media that we did find emerald ash borer in the community. It was found in a little sliver of land that city land that extends down to the 26 and 41 interchange. So it's on private property, but it is actually within our city limits. So we've had a pretty pretty good program going on here for the last 4 years to treat a lot of the trees that we want to preserve. We've also been removing some of the ash trees that are in poorer condition, so our work in that respect will continue. I guess this didn't come as a great surprise to any of us because we had a 2013 finding down in the town of Kaimai and Black Wolf, and this find last week was actually, kind of adjacent to some of those areas as well. So we had suspected it was going to be here. I'm surprised it took this long, but I think we've had quite a few phone calls today just, advising people on how to handle the issue on their private property. We've, as I said, been kind of proactively treating a lot of the trees on public property. So I think we got pretty good communication going out there with the public. There's still a few folks that don't understand what it is. But we're just advising that everybody take into consideration the options of treatment if they want to preserve some of the trees on their own property. And I've got further information out there too. It's in the press release. If anybody cares for it, I can forward that off to you too.
Bill, just briefly, what do you look for on an ash tree that detects that?
The main thing that you look for is a thinning of the canopy, and it begins near the top of the tree. So you'll notice some defoliation or thinning, and then also the real telltale sign is like a very tiny 3/8 inch diameter exit hole where the larva comes out of the bark, and it has a flat side to it, which is indicative of emerald ash borer. So it's a very small hole, probably about the size of the tip of a pen almost, with a flat side on it. But you'll notice probably, first of all, that you'll see some woodpeckers trying to get at the larva, so they'll kind of fleck out those holes a little bit. And so that's the thing that you can probably see from the ground. The ones I've seen are typically near the top of the tree, so it's kind of tough to observe them from the ground. There are also some native borers that are pretty active too. Make a larger diameter hole, which basically do the same thing to the tree. They cut these, galleries under the bark, and the tree can't take up any, water or nutrients anymore, so it just effectively dies. So yeah, just look for the thinning of the canopy, woodpecker damage, exit holes, general decline in the trees, and that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
That's all I have.
Okay, next meeting, September 12th. You don't have to dress up because it won't be televised.
You just gotta show up.
Just show up on time, yes.
We don't want Steve running the meeting.
No, you don't want me to run a meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.